So I want to talk about like houses like these, like neighborhoods like these, and why I like them. Like I'm in Toronto right now in a neighborhood on the West End, and what I like about these kinds of neighborhoods is just the charm that all the little details on the houses exude. Like you can see right here, like a lot of these houses have attics with steep roofs, with gables and balconies, and there's just a lot of little details that you can notice in homes like these. And obviously these aren't like, you know, the best of the best of historic architecture. They're not like, this isn't a neighborhood that people travel from across the world to see, or that they post on Instagram all the time, but it still has a lot of charm. And like, I mean, again, these are probably from the, I would guess, Victorian era, like many of the old homes in Toronto are. I'd probably guess, I don't know, somewhere between 1880s and 1900s, maybe 1910s at the latest. But yeah, I mean, a lot of charm in these old neighborhoods. And I mean, I know people are like, oh, cities suck, they're all filthy, but like, I mean, in this park here, I'm seeing a lot of families with like babies and young kids and stuff. So it's like, I don't know, I'm sure this area is not perfect. I mean, I'm sure there's some amount of crime, but I'm saying it's not like, I wouldn't call it a shithole by any regards. Like these are probably worth easily like 1.5 million each. And I mean, I think that is partly a supply and demand issue. The fact that there's so few neighborhoods like this in North America leads like the neighborhoods there are to be just like ridiculously overpriced. So like, I see it as a supply and demand issue to some extent, but I don't know, that's the thing. Like, we haven't even tried building more neighborhoods like this. Now, granted, part of the problem is that if we just try to build new neighborhoods like this, they wouldn't quite have the same charm, because a lot of the charm is in the little details, and it's becoming increasingly hard to replicate it. Like, I feel like architectural standards have just slipped so much. You can even see it here, like this house on the right. I don't know if it's gonna show up on YouTube in good enough resolution to really see the difference here, but like the house on the right here is in older brick, and this one to the left of it is in newer brick. I'm not sure if it was just designed that way or redone that way, but you can kind of see the difference, and in my opinion, the older brick has significantly more charm. Like, it's just a subtle thing. Like, some people might think, oh, you're making too big a deal out of these tiny little details, but to me, it does make a difference. It's like, you didn't notice it, but your brain did. I mean, here's another example. Like this house, these two houses here have kind of older brick, but then you can see this one here, the one on the right of this duplex right here, has like the newer brick. Actually, you can even see it on the duplex itself, like both of them. Again, I don't know if this will show up on YouTube, but like the one on the left, the brick looks older than the one on the right, and you can kind of see it, like if you look closely enough. But yeah, my point is like, to build new neighborhoods of this nature, like, we really need to start relearning old techniques, because frankly, I mean, when you try using modern materials and methods, it just looks kind of fake and G-slur, you know? Like, it looks shitty. Like, it's kind of like how you can tell the difference between fake tits and real tits. It's like, you can tell the difference between authentic materials and methods used to build historic architecture and you know, less authentic methods. Like, for instance, like, okay, these homes here, I'm a big fan of these ones because they got like the kind of signature Toronto style with the gabled roofs. These kind of like, a lot of them are duplexes, but some are technically detached. Like, you can see these ones here, if you look closely at them, you can tell that they're actually detached. So for like people, I know some people will say, I don't want to share walls. I don't want to share fucking walls with nobody. Well, it's like, okay, you could theoretically have a house like this and not share walls, because these are technically, I think they are, yeah, they're technically detached, and you can even walk between them. There's even enough space to walk between them, but they don't take up a ridiculous amount of space like sprawled suburban homes do. So they're still like dense enough to have that basic sense of walkability. Like as I've said many times, like there's a certain, what I call like the minimum threshold to make public transit viable, and to make neighborhoods walkable. And you can still have like houses that are technically detached, but the neighborhood still meets that threshold because of how, like, the size of the houses, the shape of the houses, and how close together they are, essentially. But they're still technically detached, so it's like you don't have to share walls if you're in one of those homes, and if that's what you're so concerned about. But I'm sure the kinds of people who say they don't want to share walls, like, I mean, personally, I understand that, but I mean, I think the people who really complain about that probably wouldn't want one of those houses either. They'd find something to complain about. They're like, oh, it's too close to the next house or whatever. Like, oh, I don't get any light in my side windows. As if anybody cares about that. Like, who cares about your stupid side windows? I don't even like side windows. Like, you can like see literally right into your neighbor's house. It's fucking weird and awkward. Now, here's something I don't like, which is this modernist addition onto this house here. Yeah, I am really not a fan of this. And this is what I talk about when I say, like, City of Toronto holds, like, they hand out, like, these construction permits like candy on Halloween, basically. Like, I mean, I think technically, like, I often see notices on the doors, like on the fronts of homes, saying like construction approval or whatever. So I think you need to go through a certain approval process in order for like a modernist addition like this to be allowed. But honestly, they hand them out like candy on Halloween, you know, like, this isn't Venice, let me put it that way. Like, this isn't like Prague. You know, in terms of our historic preservation laws, we're not at that level, unfortunately. See, right here's an example of what I was just talking about. I'm not sure what they're doing here, but you can kind of see, okay, on the windows here, it says building permit. Those are the notices I see on houses in Toronto. And whenever they're making some kind of modernist addition or whatever, they usually put that on. Now, sometimes it's not necessarily a modernist thing. Sometimes it's just another type of addition. But I'm just saying, like, they need to go through some sort of permit or approval process. And they hand them out like candy on Halloween. It doesn't seem to be hard for people to get them when they're like, hey, I want to make this beautiful Victorian home look like a fucking Picasso painting. It's like, yeah, not very difficult. But yeah, I guess what I'm trying to say is I feel like these neighborhoods, they have a certain charm that like suburban sprawl doesn't have, and that also that like modernist urban neighborhoods don't have. And like, frankly, I think Toronto's a bit underappreciated in this regard. Like, I never see people taking pictures and posting them on Instagram, for instance, like of the more historic parts of Toronto. And I mean, there's a lot of people in Toronto and a lot of people who have social media, but like Cabbagetown, for instance, I've hardly seen any pictures of it online. And I follow a lot of like historic architecture, like travel, like pages and stuff like that, and accounts. And yeah, I just think it's a bit underappreciated in that regard. And unfortunately, that underappreciation also translates into insufficiently strict preservation laws. And here we got a Slovak cathedral in this area, and some more old Victorian homes. So yeah, I just want to give an idea of like what many of these neighborhoods in Toronto are like. Like, this neighborhood isn't especially unique. Like, there's a lot of neighborhoods kind of like this in Toronto. And as I've said, I feel they're kind of underappreciated because they're not quite as glamorous as, like, you know, your historic cities of Europe, or even like the historic parts of, say, New York City or New Orleans or Quebec City. But I think they still have their own charm in a way. And I mean, yeah, they're not as like they're not as immediately eye-catching like the types of homes that I've shown you. Like, again, they're not like something that tourists come to see like the world over or anything like that, but they're still nice in their own way. And yeah, and one final thought, like neighborhoods like this, obviously, like this part of Toronto, you look at a map come election season, and it's like, you know, overwhelmingly like liberal NDP Greens, right? But I mean, thing is, you gotta ask, like, how much of the reason for that in neighborhoods like this, in cities like this, is because, frankly, like the Conservative Party, the PPC, the other, like, you know, right-leaning parties are kind of just, frankly, hostile toward transit, toward walkability, toward urbanism itself. And I mean, this kind of neighborhood is very much founded on that. And like, I mean, maybe if they didn't hate places like this so much, they could potentially get more votes, you know? Not that voting for the Conservative Party would fix anything, but yeah, those are my thoughts. Just thought I'd give you guys a little tour of this neighborhood.